in the economic fortunes of the United States. I mean, with every particle of a percentage increase in the GDP, it means trillions of dollars to the United States economy. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely amazing when you think about how well the Dow Jones Industrial Index and all the economic indicators, we've seen record highs, and think about what that's done for a lot of folks' 401k. So I think that those are the good things, but again, the individual tax rate side, those are not permanent. I wish they would have been permanent. I wish that they would have brought down to fewer tax brackets and more of a flat tax. And then there's some special interest things that are hidden in there that I just don't like, and so we got to move on.
Indeed, we do. We are speaking, by the way, with former Congressman Alan West, joining us on the Wells Report here on the USA Radio Network. There was a big decision by the president a couple of weeks ago involving the movement of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. There was a huge backlash predicted. A mediocre at best backlash has actually happened. There have been a lot of people that have looked at each other and said, "My goodness, this is a terrible decision," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, the big explosions that I was expecting, figuratively, did not seem to happen. What are your thoughts on the Jerusalem move, and do you think it's the right thing to do?
Well, it absolutely is the right thing to do. The head of government for the state of Israel is in Jerusalem. And every other nation where the United States of America has an embassy, it is at the location where their head of their seat of government is. And so why should it be any different in Israel? We cannot continue to be held hostage to Islamofascists and Islamic jihadists, which is the main reason why since 1995, this thing, which is supposed to be law, many presidents have pledged that they were going to do it, and they never did. Because everyone keeps believing that we have to acquiesce, compromise, and appease to have peace in the Middle East. Well, until they stop embracing Islamic terrorism and harboring terrorist groups, you're not going to have it. I found it very interesting that in Sweden and Malmo and Gothenburg, you had Jewish synagogues being firebombed, in Europe. And so, are we supposed to believe that this is how foreign policy and negotiations should be done? And we should not allow those who condone and promote violence to dictate to us our foreign policy.
Indeed. Sir, you have been watching, I'm sure, the fortunes of Austria, where more nationalist parties have taken the fore. There's a 31-year-old chancellor of Austria now who says that what he's going to do is he's going to insist that newcomers to the country, specifically Muslims, learn to interpolate themselves into the actual culture and become Austrian Muslims as opposed to becoming or trying to make Austria Muslim. And it seems like there is a wave of that going through the entire continent of Europe. Angela Merkel is in deep trouble politically. Do you think there's going to be a way for everybody to coexist? And is there going to be a way for these cultures, these thousands of year cultures, Germany, France, England, and so on, are they going to be able to survive this Muslim onslaught?
Well, they're not going to be able to survive if they do not have assimilation. They're not going to be able to survive if they don't understand that, tolerance has to be a two-way street, because when tolerance becomes a one-way street, it leads to cultural suicide. And what I find very interesting is the juxtaposition between what I call the old Europe, England, France, Germany, Belgium, and the new Europe, Eastern Europe, because you don't hear about these Islamic terrorist attacks in Eastern Europe. You don't hear about this, diversity and multiculturalism that is on steroids that is really causing, many problems. You don't hear about the rapes and sexual assaults and sexual harassment of European women in, Poland or the Czech Republic or Slovakia, whatever, like you do in Germany and other places. So I think that the European Union, who has had this open border, open immigration policy led by Angela Merkel, they have to reverse that. And when you look at what is happening in Eastern Europe, where they have said, absolutely not, we're not going to kowtow, we're not going to do this, you're seeing the people who have a sense of security that the people in England, France, Spain, Belgium, Germany, and the Scandinavian countries do not have.
We are speaking with Alan West. He is a 22-year veteran of the United States Army. He retired as a lieutenant colonel. He is author of the book Guardian of the Republic, former Florida congressman, joining us on the Wells Report here on the USA Radio Network. Sir, let's spend a little bit of time talking about an explosive story. Oh, excuse me, before I go there, if you have a question for the former congressman from Florida and Guardian of the Republic author, please join us at 844-927-6691. Now, here's the way this works. You can only ask a question. Just simply ask a question of the former Congressman Alan West, and we will be more than happy to ask the congressman to answer that for you. But a question and a question only, 844-927-6691. 91. Let's talk a little bit about an explosive story out of Politico. We're still trying to find somebody else to back the story up. There is a reporter that says that the president of the United States, Barack Obama, interfered with a DEA investigation and indeed a perhaps a bringing down of a Hezbollah drug deal that was funding Hezbollah. What are your thoughts on this? This is just explosive. I mean, the mainstream media is not covering it. What do you see in it?
Well, this is huge. And look, those of us that have been following things happening down in Latin America in the Southern Command area of operations, we've known for quite some time. The Hezbollah, which is a proxy Islamic terrorist organization and a wing supported by Iran, has made huge inroads into the south of our border, into South America and Central America, and they are supported by the drug cartels, and that is how we are seeing many of them being infiltrated across our very porous border. And for the American people, they need to understand that Hezbollah, before Al Qaeda, had inflicted the worst casualties in a terrorist attack against the United States, and that was the 1980s Beirut barracks bombing. So what this Politico article, which is very long, well written, and this named sources are talking to this reporter. They're saying that because of the Iranian nuclear deal, President Obama forced the Drug Enforcement Agency to back away off of Hezbollah because they didn't want to upset that nuclear deal. This is something where you need to have a special investigation, or the FBI needs to open up an investigation. This is huge, John David. This is an American president basically colluding with an Islamic terrorist organization, as he is colluding with the number one state sponsor of Islamic terrorism in the world, and that's Iran. So all of this, chasing the tail with Robert Mueller and this ghost of a Russian collusion story, here we have something that is very dire and something that really does affect the American people and really does affect a lot of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines who were in Iraq, because Iran was producing those explosive force penetrators that were horrifically killing and maiming our troops. But we had an administration that was working with them behind the scenes and negating an investigation of a terrorist organization. This is big.
It is absolutely huge. I have never seen anything like it, certainly not anything that had come to light before the American people. And I find it stunning, absolutely stunning, that the mainstream media is not jumping all over the story to either prove it or disprove it. One of those two things
that tells you something, doesn't it?
It really does. And my concern about this is this brings into stark relief some of the things that I've been saying over the years, that the mainstream media is abandoning its constitutional mandate and it's becoming the propaganda wing of the left. And it's got to stop.
Well, it has to stop, and I think that this is where that moniker of fake news has really hit home against them. And the fact that they are not talking about this, the fact that they don't want to bring this out into the public and discuss it, much the same as they do everything Donald Trump, that is a clear indicator that they are a propaganda wing of the Democrat Party. And this is necessary for us to understand, because what else happened in that presidential administration of Barack Obama over the last 8 years that we are going to come to find out, farther down the path? Because this is a story that I believe is about, 8 to 10 years old. This is not something that just happened, yesterday. This was an ongoing investigation that the Obama administration, which means that the Department of Justice had to have a part in this, the Department of State had to have had a part in this, the National Security Advisor had to have a part in this. They all negated a very important investigation into an Islamic terrorist organization.
This is incredible. It is absolutely incredible. Congressman, I want to thank you again for joining us here on the Wells Report. It's always a pleasure to have you. I learn so much every time you're here. What have you got planned, and what can we tell people to do to get in touch with you and find out more about what you're up to?
Well, you can follow me on alanbwest.com, and in the second week of January, we'll start a podcast called The Old School Patriot.
The Old School Patriot. It's a new podcast, and we should talk about that, sir. I certainly hope we get a chance to chat about that as we head to the new year with big things involved for Mr. Alan B. West. Sir, a pleasure to have you here again.
Thanks so much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you and yours. And, of course, the Congressman wished everybody here on the Wells Report, all the listeners, a very happy Christmas as well. He is a superb human being. Can hardly wait to see what he's got for us next. You are listening to the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment on the USA Radio Network. Would you thank him for me?
All right, man, he already hung up.
I know. Would you thank him for me, Mr. Phil? I would appreciate what? It's just awesome. If you can send him a note or something. That was flipping great. That'll work. Yeah, that'll work. Just reach out and touch him right this second. It's awesome. Okay. No problem.
You and him, I could hear you and him talking over it in the recording. So I just sent it.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I'm sorry. We got to fix that. Yeah, we have to fix that. I'm not supposed to be able to hear that in here.
Right.
And you're not supposed to be able to hear me talking on something you're recording in there. Yeah, theoretically, yeah.
Actually, I can see why I would do that. Both sources were on the board and stuff.
All right. Cool deal, my friend.
I was able to hear him talking. That's weird.
Huh?
So I heard you talking, which is fine on the recording. I shouldn't have been able to hear Mike.
All of this, right, is what you need to be hearing in there. And we have to parse all this stuff out.
Right. No,
This right here needs to be the production channel. Right? Yeah, so we got to get that fixed at this point. All right, my friend. Don't worry about that. Perfect. Hey, Mike, you're going to be able to get that, right? You're going to be able to get that sound that I guess he's an F-14 jock. I'm not sure. I have to find out. Yeah. We just sent you a sound file that we need you to record.
Oh, okay.
It's on CNN. It's from the guys in a Navy jet seeing UFOs in front of them.
It's in that link that I sent.
Okay.
Yeah, he sent you a link, and the back and forth discussion. The back and forth begins at 18 seconds in and lasts until 40, and the rest of it's the rest of it.
Okay. It looks like it's only a minute long.
Yeah, it's only about a minute. Yeah.
So just record the whole thing, or?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah. No sweat. I'll have to do that out there. Okay. Yeah. No sweat, man. I'll get that.
We don't have to worry about that until 3:00 our time, or no, 4 o'clock our time.
Okay. Yeah. I'll get that in just a second. I'm setting up the other audio clips you sent now.
Okay, cool. Yep. Yes, sir. We haven't talked about the Bundy issue yet. We just got finished with Alan B. West. Well, yeah. Would you mind if we did it or tomorrow? Can we cover it? Okay. Yeah. Let me get it here.
All right, we're back in 10 seconds.
Okay. Can you do me a favor? No, let's see. When was this? 20 seconds, you said?
No, 5 seconds.
Okay, go. Hang on. You're listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Want to thank Alan B. West again for joining us, the former Florida congressman, author of Guardian of the Republic. He is a superb human being. This guy is he's just the best there is. And looking forward to what he's got planned for us in 2018. He said he has some big plans for us. And he does say he has a podcast. And who knows? Maybe we can figure out some way of having him around most of this same radio network at some point. Who knows? Maybe we can get that done. I'm just a spirit carrier. I'm just a guy that just, is nailing down one part of a very big and very good radio network. And I'm rooting for my friend Alan B. West. The tax bill came back around. It was passed yesterday by the House. Then it went to the Senate. The parliamentarian there found two small glitches and one kind of serious glitch with the bill. Those were sent away. They were tossed away. Then they passed the bill in the Senate last night. It came to the House this morning. They passed it, and Paul Ryan had some very important things to tell Savannah Guthrie today regarding this tax bill. He was very happy to see it pass.
I'm looking at a list of CEOs who said, we don't plan to reinvest. What they're planning to do is to do stock buybacks, to line the pockets of shareholders. Let me quote Michael Bloomberg, a billionaire, hardly an enemy of business. He said, CEOs aren't waiting on a tax cut to jumpstart the economy, a favorite phrase of politicians who have never run a company, or to hand out raises. It's pure fantasy to think that the tax bill will lead to significantly higher wages and growth. I'll ask you plainly, are you living in a fantasy world?
I would compare that anecdote to just the surveys of businesses like the National Association of Manufacturers surveys, which show the vast majority of businesses are going to do just what we say, reinvest in their workers, reinvest in their factories, pay people more money, higher wages.
Let me pin you down on that, though.
The data is really clear, by the way. Workers benefit from this through higher wages. It's not a question of if, it's a question of how much they benefit.
That was Paul Ryan early today talking to Savannah Guthrie. It is going to be something, again, that is going to benefit the United States dramatically. It is a $1.5 trillion package. It will indeed benefit Americans and America just in a brilliant way. And a lot of people are feeling that way. We talked about it yesterday. It means a lot. If all goes as planned, President Trump will sign the bill known as the Tax Cuts and Job Act before Christmas. The tax bill looks something like this. Do corporations get a big tax cut? Yes. The new bill lowers the corporate tax from 35, actually it was 37%. This is, I don't know. Let's see. Fox News got it wrong. 37 to 21%. How does it impact your personal income tax? The bill keeps 7 tax brackets while reducing the rates for 5 of them. The new rates start at 10% and rise to 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, and 37%. That highest rate applies to individuals whose income exceeds $500,000 a year. For joint filers, the threshold is $600,000 a year. The rate is being lowered from 39.6%. Will you still get penalized if you do not have health insurance? The answer is no. Beginning in 2019, the new legislation eliminates the Affordable Care Act's individual mandate. That effectively kills Obamacare, and you'll be hearing more about that in the coming days with people saying, no, Obamacare is just fine. Of course, there's no way to pay for Obamacare, therefore Obamacare is not just fine. And there are these huge subsidies that have to be a part of it in order to make the whole thing fly. Probably not going to be an issue moving forward. What about the alternative minimum tax rate? The alternative minimum tax is essentially a secondary tax on the wealthy put in place to offset benefits a person with high incomes might receive. The new bill eliminated the AMT for corporations, keeps it for individuals. It raises the exemption to $500,000 for single payers and $1 million for couples. How does the new bill affect the child tax credit? Under the new bill, taxpayers can claim $2,000 for each qualifying child under the age of 17. That tax credit applies to single filers and married couples, is fully refundable up to $1,400. Estate taxes, the new bill keeps the estate tax at 40%, but doubles the exemption levels, which are currently at $5.49 million for individuals, $10.98 million for married couples. What about the state and local taxes? Under the finalized bill, families can deduct up to a total of $10,000 in local properties and state and local taxes. There's more. We've got more of it for you coming up in just a couple of seconds. Also, do you remember Cliven Bundy? Remember that name? Remember the Bureau of Land Management? Remember the gigantic mess out west? We do. Something amazing happened with that particular story. We'll cover that for you next with a guy who watched it and covered it the entire time. You are listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network. We'll be back with more on a very big news day on this fine, high-quality radio network. Okay, let's see.
All right, man. Sounding good.
Thank you, sir. Bundy trial. Mistrial. Fox News. Print. Okay. Print. Oh, well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. You hear that spot?
Oh, yeah.
Is it okay? All right. Mother Jones. Let's see. Washington Times. Oh, wait. Hold it. Oh, that'll work. That'll work. That'll work. Print it. Okay. Whoop. What? Cancel. What? No thanks. Okay, good. Print. Okay. All right. Okay. So let me go get those.
So who are you having on to talk about the Clyde Bundy thing?
News article. You gonna join us, boss?
All right, back in 1 minute.
Right. Okay. You'll be all right. It's 2. Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. 2:30, 32. Okay, good. Oh, well, yeah, you need to be there an hour ahead. Okay, so let's see. That goes here. All right. Check.
All right, back in 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Check. Get close to the microphone. Get close. Bring this down. Check. Chalk. Chuck, talk to me.
Talk to you. 1,
That's
2,
perfect.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
You're the best, dang it. Okay, turn your mic back off. No, what's here, buddy? I'm going to need that article on the printer. Thank you, sir. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. If you know anything about this radio broadcast, I came to Texas after living in Nevada for some 12 years. And there's been a very serious bit of turmoil between we, the people of the United States out west, and the authorities out there that think that they own every single particle, every grain of sand, everything having to do with anything belonging to Western America. That is a group of people in California known as the Bureau of Land. Well, it's not just California, but also Nevada, the Bureau of Land Management. These people got in the face of a guy named Cliven Bundy. Cliven Bundy was free-ranging his cattle out on federal land. Okay, he was.
His family had been running cattle since 1877 with grazing allotments issued by the United States government for which they paid. He also owned a 160-acre ranch of his own in fee simple.
But he was free-ranging those, and the government said that he had not kept up with his grazing fees.
Yeah, that's, again, one of the common media misconceptions. What he did was, one year in 1991, I believe it was, the BLM went to him and said, you can't run 950 head of cattle anymore because they're going to step on the desert tortoise.
Yeah.
So we won't accept your grazing fees.
I see.
But he said, hey, you know what happens to a rancher that doesn't run 950 head of cattle? He's broke.
Exactly.
They want him to cut his herd to 150 head.
Right.
And this went on for 30 years almost.
And then what ended up happening is the BLM showed up with a bunch of guns.
Then the Bureau of Land Management got a court order. And, you know, they keep saying, you go to the land records in Clark County, Nevada. You know, they're all online, and search for judgments against Cliven Bundy.
By the way,
find anybody.
By the way, you're listening to Fred Weinberg. Fred Weinberg is my boss. He is the principal behind Nevada Radio LLC. And he covered this story with a very, very good publication called the Penny Press.
My lawyer my late lawyer was actually one of Cliven's advisors. Cliven's a hard-headed old coot who doesn't take legal advice, by the way. Yeah. I'm not sure that he's actually out of jail, even though they declared a mistrial. Yeah,
that was something that happened today. A federal judge declared a mistrial today in the case of rancher Cliven Bundy and co-defendants accused of leading the 2014 Nevada standoff, admonishing the prosecution for failing to turn over potentially exculpatory evidence to the defense. That's prosecutorial misconduct.
Let me tell you, that's the mildest interpretation, because this judge kept him in. She refused to grant him bail for 2 years, or at least a year anyway. And you know, this guy's 73 years old. She said he was a danger to the people around him.
Not just him, but also his sons Ammon and Ryan Payne, all of those people involved in this particular standoff.
And when one guy did get convicted, or she gave him 68 years. Now in Nevada, you have to understand, it's perfectly, the folks who are listening to us on my Nevada Talk Network know this. It's perfectly legal to open carry a gun.
Yes, it is.
You don't have to have a permit. You don't have to place your lips upon anybody's posterior, not even a local sheriff. You can carry a gun, except in places where you can't, which are few, schools being one of them. So, you know, basically, they're charged with exercising their Second Amendment rights and supporting, in the same way that people who go to Washington and rally on front of the Washington Monument on the mall do, Cliven Bundy's right to run his cattle. And when you talk to certain talk show hosts, oh, no, he didn't pay his grazing fees. they wouldn't accept his grazing fees. Again, you go to the Clark County Public Records, which are online, search for judgments and liens against Cliven Bundy. You're not going to find anything.
That's very interesting.
I know, because we did.
Well, that's very interesting. The thing about that is that when we were out here in Texas, I mean, there's a lot of free range cattle going on, although 94% of Texas is owned by Texans.
Yes.
So, but when you start talking about this,
94%, 91% of the state of Nevada is owned by the federal government. And by the way, it's not just the BLM; it's the Department of
Energy.
No. Well, it's also the BLM comes under the Department of the Interior. The Department of Agriculture has the Forest Service, and they are just as bad.
Yeah, well, all I can tell you is that there were all kinds of real problems here, because a lot of people, Cliven Bundy has a lot of friends, and Cliven Bundy's friends showed up with their horses and started working over the cattle to make sure that everybody was okay.
And one day, Barack Obama looked up and said, "Wait a minute, we're not supposed to be invading Nevada," because that's what it looked like.
Right.
So they called him off.
Yeah.
And then they blamed, and then Harry Reid, the former
erstwhile
August
senator,
from the state of Nevada, called them all domestic terrorists. I think I still have a domestic terrorist T-shirt. I'm not a reporter. There's no question, but I'm a commentator.
Sure.
And I'm not going to tell you that you're seeing this as straight on news without a bias, because I live out there.
Well, the only thing that I can say,
I have a couple of acres in the middle of nowhere.
Well, the thing that I want to say about this is that clearly I reported the news honestly. I mean, this is the story that we were told. And I was amazed to find out that, say, for example, it wasn't the case. The BLM refused to take his money. I found that ridiculous.
The news media, first off, doesn't understand actually covering a story these days. Most of them are incompetent. And I say this as a veteran of just about every level of news reporting you can be at, including network television, especially network television. And in this case, they simply did not get the story right, because that was, they take a news release and they read it and it must be true, right? Because the BLM said it was true. About the same time, right before this happened, the BLM law enforcement people shot 2 guys.
Yes.
And to this day, they still haven't released the names of those guys. And in this case, some of the information that was withheld, and the judge let it be withheld until it wasn't, was FBI material. Does this begin to give you a pattern?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, when you start thinking about these things, this could have gone down a very, very bad road, because suddenly the BLM, I found out, much to my surprise, that the BLM suddenly had a group of snipers that happened to be in the employ of the BLM.
Isn't that amazing?
What for?
Because they wanted to shoot people that got their way.
They wanted to shoot people that were out there on the land, the federal land, our land.
One of the reasons they wanted this evidence withheld was it's embarrassing. This is as embarrassing as the text messages between the FBI agent and his girlfriend, his mistress. I can't think of any, guys who used to be in the FBI and these government agencies, they must cringe every time they pick up the newspaper these days.
They have to, and they should, by the way, they should. So there has been a tentatively new trial scheduled to begin February 26th of next year.
One can only hope that Attorney General Sessions will step in and say, okay, enough.
Defense attorneys have argued the case should be thrown out. Carol Bundy, the wife of Cliven, the mother of Ammon and Ryan, praised the judge for her decision. Quote, "Today, our prayers were heard, and the current trial against my husband, sons, and other defendants was declared a mistrial. We wanted a dismissal, but we are grateful the truth is getting out. We are a step closer to freedom."
This judge is an Obama appointee. She she literally would not grant bail until it looked absolutely ridiculous. And when she did, Cliven Bundy said, "I'm staying here.
Indeed.
I'm not going anywhere." So for all I know, he's still in the can.
Let's talk a little bit about what this means. So what we have here is we have what is essentially a mini sagebrush rebellion.
Well, it's been going on for years. My late attorney, Grant Gerber of Elko, Nevada, actually died riding a horse from California to Washington, D.C., got tossed off the horse in Kansas.
Oh, man.
Went ahead and testified in front of Congress and died of a brain hemorrhage on the way back.
Good grief.
And you know, he too is a hard-headed old coot. His head wasn't hard enough.
Not quite hard enough. Okay, so in all of this, what's going to happen with this prevailing attitude out west among federal law enforcement, the BLM being a part of that?
Well,
I think
Ryan Zinke is going to explain to them that this isn't the attitude of the previous Secretary of the Interior. And I'm pretty sure it's not President Trump's attitude, because he went out there and undid Bears Ears in Utah.
That's true. And that was a gigantic land grab on the part of the Obama administration. Yeah.
Well, sure, because Utah is an entirely Republican state. And, you know, if he could screw with them a little bit, he would. And that's exactly what he did.
It is incredible.
President Trump marched right out there and fixed it.
There was... I keep getting back to this. I was really concerned about the sniper deal with the BLM. The BLM, the Bureau of Land Management.
What do they need snipers? What do they need any of this stuff? Years ago, when I had stations in Oklahoma, a new Cherokee police chief was elected to replace the Wilma man killer Bill Clinton favorite. And they found out when he took over that the Cherokee Police Department near Tahlequah, Oklahoma, had 12 MAC-10 machine guns, among other things, and they had to send in special forces operators to clean out that police department. And we asked the same question: what do these guys need machine guns for in a sleepy little Indian town called Tahlequah, Oklahoma? And that goes double for these clowns. You don't hunt bear with snipers.
Well, and the thing about it is also that there was only one reason to have these people on the payroll of the Bureau of Land Management. Now, as this moves forward, Cliven Bundy is probably not going to see another federal courtroom.
I'm going to guess that the erstwhile prosecutors in Las Vegas probably have. Let's put it this way: these guys bring this back, they're going to get laughed out of the courtroom.
Probably.
Because they're probably also going to get another judge.
What are they going to do about this moving forward? I mean, there's nothing out there. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing.
It turned out that the desert tortoise wasn't being threatened by cows.
It's true. Cows don't step on tortoises.
And the other thing that's true is food doesn't come from Walmart.
True.
Much as we like our potential sponsor here at the radio station.
Yes, indeed.
Food does not come from Walmart. Food comes from the range.
Yes, indeed.
Where I grew up in Illinois, it comes from a feedlot. But here it comes from the range.
It does.
So, you know, what we're talking about is basically, can people grow their own food?
It's not just grow their own food, but it's also this unbelievable belief by the federal government that they own that land.
Well, and we think it's yuppies from Pennsylvania. They don't like to go out there and step in cow flop. And you know, they want their land pristine. What they don't understand, you know, the folks in our Nevada network who are hearing this hear the Smoked Bear commercials, and Smoked Bear is a fictional character that was made up, and he talks to a young fictional boy named Jimmy, and he explains that if you let the cattle and the sheep and the wild horses graze the range, you have less fuel to burn, less wildfires. I think the statistic they used is back in the 80s, it was 25,000 acres a year. Now 625,000 acres a year. Because they don't somehow they believe it's more economic to put out the fires than to stop them from spreading in the first place.
Which is why California was burning down a couple of weeks ago, and I heard the winds were coming back, and it might rekindle those fires.
Getting ready to go home. In fact, I will thank you, my friends at Southwest Airlines. My wife and I will be on a plane at 3:55. And we're just down the street from Love Field, so I can do this. And you know, when we get there, I understand there's a big storm, Northern California, high winds. Fortunately, it comes with snow and rain.
Well, let's hope that it
doesn't stay.
Yeah, let's hope that it puts out those fires and so on. But once again, you know, as we come to this conversation, Cliven Bundy is a guy who is an old-time Western rancher.
He's a hard-headed Western rancher.
Yep.
Because there's some legal strategies he could have employed, and he didn't. For instance, the government telling him that he had to get rid of the cows is the same thing as reducing the value of his 160-acre farm ranch in Bunkerville, Nevada. And there's what we call a takings case there. You know, when the government takes your land, it has to compensate you.
Right.
And he refused to bring that. He wanted the government out of his life, period.
Yeah.
And in fairness, he's a Mormon, and they disparaged all the Mormons. There was all kinds of messages, more texts where they disparaged Mormons.
That was also surprising insofar as Harry Reid is Mormon.
Oh, Harry Reid is a convert. Harry Reid became a Mormon as a marketing gimmick.
Really?
Yes, really.
The things you learn hanging around with Fred Weinberg.
That's right. And I got to do that with some Southwest Airlines passengers like right now.
Have yourself a great time, sir. Thank you very
You
much
too.
for coming by. Always great to see you.
Always fun to be in Dallas.
A very, very big story for our friends on the Nevada News Network. And we want to thank Fred Weinberg for dropping by and giving us the inside skinny, because obviously, once again, I mean, I go through the news. I go through the news every single day. I go through the news, and I covered this story like a blanket on the Wells Report. And the thing about it is that what we were getting through all major sources of news was incorrect, insofar as I had no idea that the BLM refused to take the grazing fees that Cliven Bundy had offered. It's unbelievable, it's incredible, and it's the federal government run amok. This is a constitutional republic. I am a conservative. I believe that the government should be limited, drastically limited, and that it is not limited gives us all kinds of problems and costs people their lives and their fortunes. And it's time to get away from that. You're listening to the Wells Report.
All right, sir.
Yes, sir. How'd that sound?
That's pretty good.
All right.
Pretty good.
Okie as well as dokey.
All right. Oh, yeah, let me grab that clip. Oh, this one.
Yeah, go 18 seconds into the cut. It's loud too, by the way.
All right, I'm about to hit record, man.
Okay.
Here we go.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not. It is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's, look at that thing. It's rotating.
All right, cool. I'll edit out some of that just plain noise.
What you can do is you can what was I going to say? I'm sorry, I'm distracted. You just fade it when we finish with that.
Oh, wait, what do you mean?
Huh? What I'm saying is that you can just fade it when you play it on the air.
Uh-huh.
That there's nothing after that. That
Yeah,
when after they finish talking, they talk for about 22 seconds. After that, it's just static. You can just fade it down. You don't have to make any cuts or anything.
Oh, I already cut it out.
Okay, well, never mind then. I'll just shut the heck up. I'll just be quiet, my friend.
You're good, man.
We're gonna play Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer.
All right.
Okay.
Here we go in 5 seconds.
Okay. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Once again, the Republicans feeling very, very good today. A major legislative victory for the president. He will sign the bill as if he may have already signed the bill. In fact, there was a bulletin that came out that said that the president was going to sign the bill somewhere around 2:00. We do not know whether that actually happened, but we will keep our eyes on the news and we will let you know as we find out more. Like I said, the Republicans are feeling good, and that includes Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader.
Election as well. I'll take one more. Yeah.
What do you say to Senator Schumer, though, who says that you guys are going to rue the day that you passed this bill, that the politics of passing long-term corporate tax cuts but short-term individual cuts is going to catch up to you guys?
Your job is to use the Democratic talking points. I understand that. Look, we believe that this product will do two extremely important things for the country. Number one, provide middle tax relief. And number two, provide business changes that make us more competitive. With regard to the termination dates, let me tell you what terminates this tax cut. Democrats taking the Congress next November would turn this into a very short tax bill. So I think focusing on dates that may expire because of the need to fit the reconciliation rules missed the point. Every single Democrat voted for this. They're all committed to repealing it and raising taxes on the American people. That's what's at stake in the fall of 2018.
By the way, Chuck Schumer had something to say, and that was referenced in that answer from Mitch McConnell.
Released a report that found by 2027, nearly 145 million middle-class families under 200,000 will either get tax hikes. Can we have order, Mr. President?
The Senate will be in order.
This is serious stuff. We believe you're messing up America. You could pay attention for a couple of minutes.
Jeff Merkley of the People's Republic of Oregon, he's a Democrat there. He talked about how this was obviously theft on the part of the Republican Party.
The GOP just pulled off the biggest bank heist in American history, delivering trillions of dollars from the National Treasury to the richest Americans and most powerful corporations. This comes at the expense of many in the middle class, many who will lose their health insurance, many who will see their insurance premiums spike, and millions upon millions in the middle class who will actually end up with higher taxes than they had before. This is a brazen move to rig our political system and our economy, not to work for we the people, but for we the powerful. This is government by and for the most powerful in our nation.
I don't know whether
it's unacceptable in our democratic republic that this should come to pass. It's a symptom of extensive corruption of our political system, and we must keep fighting day in and day out to restore the vision of we the people here in the United States of America.
That, by the way, is Jeff Merkley. He's a senator from the People's Republic of Oregon, and I don't know what he's talking about. This country was founded on the premise of not paying taxes. Not paying taxes. Okay? Taxes are bad in the United States. And here's Senator Jeff Merkley talking about them like they're a necessary bulwark in the American experience. Taxes, especially federal taxes, do one thing. They obstruct the progress of the people of the United States and their economy. That's it. That's all taxes do. especially when you start considering the fact that that very same political party in the last 10 years spent $5.5 trillion, and I don't know anybody that got any of it. $5.5 trillion. And I have no idea who got any of it. I didn't get any of it. Did you? Hey, if you did, you got a piece of that, 844-927-6691. In other words, the Democrats are losing their flipping minds. This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
Hey, man, did you hear that little music?
Sure.
I don't know where the hell it came from. Like, I was looking all over to see where it was playing from, but I could not find it.
I don't think it came from us.
No, I don't think it came from y'all either, because I recognize the music. It's from one
Wait a
of our
minute.
shows.
PC audio.
I don't think it came from y'all either, because the music was from one of our shows.
It was.
Yeah, it's from Trending Today music.
Yeah, it was trending today, and I don't know where that goes. So that means it had to come through. Somebody's got something open somewhere in the studios there.
It must be. Let me see something.
On millions in the middle class who will actually end up with higher taxes.
It's in the file.
Yeah, it is in the file. Yeah.
On millions in the middle class who will actually end up.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the sneeze.
You did. Yeah, you did.
Did you hear the sneeze? I didn't hear the sneeze.
Not to work for we the people, what will be the spike, and millions upon millions.
Sound like me.
Yeah, I didn't hear it either. Wow, that's crazy.
That sounded like me. When did I sneeze?
I have not. I don't know. Maybe
I do not know these answers and many others. I do not know.
Do y'all listen to the show? Do y'all listen to the show while y'all are cutting this audio or something? Do y'all listen to Trending Today at all?
Probably.
Okay.
That had to be. By the way, are you hearing the music from Trending Today got on some of those cuts?
Let me check the other one.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea.
All right, cool. I'll be right back, man. We got 5.5 minutes.
Okay, cool.
All right.
No, that's not what I wanted. Hold on. Paste. There we go. Publish. All right. Man.
All right, man. We're back in a minute and 10 seconds.
1 minute and 10 seconds. By the way, I want to find out what's going on with that bill signing. Do we know what's happening there? Try to chase that down. Would you, Mike?
All right. All right, here we go in 10 seconds.
North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast. You can do that anytime you'd like. 844-927-6691 is our telephone number. 844-927-6691. It's a very big day news-wise. Coming up in just a couple of seconds, we got some startling news coming out of the Obama administration. Want to do a couple of other things here first. These are the kind of shows that drive the best of people crazy, because what we do is we do more segments than normal on certain things. But a big thing happened today. Finally got the tax bill passed, a $1.5 trillion deal for the people of the United States. And there are some other things that you need to keep in mind. For example, some of the things in the show we covered earlier regarding this tax bill. For new home buyers, the mortgage interest. Let's try this again. If you want to buy a new home, for new home buyers, the mortgage interest rate deduction will be available for mortgages up to $750,000. That is down from $1 million. Pass-through businesses are typically sole proprietorships, joint ventures, limited liability companies, S-corps. They are not taxed as corporations. If you are one of those people that has to deal with pass-through provisions, the profits from those businesses will be counted in the owner's personal tax returns. They are not taxed as corporations, which is good. The finalized bill gives businesses a 20% deduction for the first $315,000 of joint income. And finally, if you have student loans, and what about the medical expense deductions? The new tax bill keeps the current deductions for student loan interest. Also, the tuition waivers that are received by graduate students will remain tax-free. If you have expensive medical bills, this portion of the bill could be beneficial to you. The legislation allows taxpayers to deduct medical expenses that exceed 7.5% of their adjusted gross income. That is incredibly important. What a great deal that is. Although Nancy Pelosi only sees it as the end of everything as she knows it.
17 centuries ago, St. Augustine said, "A state which is not governed according to justice is a bunch of thieves." Pope Benedict went on to say, "The state must inevitably face the question of how justice can be achieved here and now." And he cautioned against, in his words, the danger of certain ethical blindness caused by the dazzling effect of power and special interest. My colleagues, is there justice in a bill that rewards corporations shipping jobs overseas, jobs of hardworking men and American women and veterans, shipping those jobs overseas? Is there justice in that? No, I don't think so. Is there justice in a bill that spikes healthcare premiums and may add 13 million Americans to the ranks of the uninsured? No justice there. Is there justice in a bill that raises taxes on 86 million middle-class families? Here we are. Raises taxes on 86 million middle-class families, and they try to present the delusion that it's a middle-class tax cut. Is there justice in a bill that hands a breathtaking 83% of its benefits to the wealthiest 1% of Americans? 83% of its benefits to the top 1%. Is there justice in a bill that explodes the national debt to give the wealthy and the well-connected a break and sticks the debt with our children? Is that justice? I didn't think you thought so. I wish our Republican colleagues would join us. This GOP tax scam is simply theft, monumental, brazen theft from the American middle class and from every person who aspires to reach it. The GOP tax scam is not a vote for an investment in growth or jobs. It is a vote to install a permanent plutocracy in our nation. They'll be cheering that later. It does violence to the vision of our founders. It disrespects the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform, who are a large part of our middle class and to whom we owe a future worthy of their sacrifice. And it betrays the future and betrays the aspirations of our children. It morally demands a no vote from every member of this House of the people.
In case you don't know, a plutocracy is where the rich rule everything. It is not what happens in the United States. And I don't know, once again, I have no idea where Nancy Pelosi is coming from. I don't know what she's talking about. And neither, by the way, does Kevin McCarthy, the Republican from California, who happens to be the House Majority Whip.
For those who believe in the hope of this country, even greater, looking at this bill, Broadcom said they're coming back to America. Mr. Speaker, you know what that means? $20 billion in revenue just a year. That means $3 billion every year invested in R&D, $6 billion every year invested in manufacturing. Those are jobs we all dream about. And the action of this bill is making it happen. You can see it in the faces of families who learn that next year, thousands of dollars that they earn won't go straight to Washington. They'll actually stay right at home. And this is all in an environment of disinformation and fear-mongering. I mean, I've seen what has been said. And to me, it's absurd. Mr. Speaker, Leader Pelosi said that this bill was, and I quote, Armageddon, and quote, the end of the world. Now, Mr. Speaker, I listened a great deal to what my counterpart on the other side, the minority leader, has said. And I've read when the Washington Post analyzed what she had said. Now, when you say something that could be a little off and don't have all the information, they have this rating for you. She's had a rating on this. She did not get one Pinocchio. She did not even get two. She didn't even get the extreme of 3. She got the most Pinocchios you can say when it's totally false, 4, for her conversation about this bill. Mr. Speaker, in such times when the other side will say anything to win their political game, I recommend the folks actually look at the bill. Doubling the standard deduction, lowering rates, simplifying the code so you don't spend weeks, you spend minutes, doubling the child tax credit, ending the individual mandate, lowering taxes on small businesses to the lowest it's been in 40 years, creating incentives for business to invest and hire. That's not a recipe for Armageddon. That's a hope for a nation to come back. The American people see through all this rhetoric, and they're going to feel it next year when they check their paychecks and they see they keep more money because of the vote today. They're going to feel it next year and the years after. And when they get that raise they've been waiting for, they're going to feel it more and more. Companies announce coming back home. They're bringing jobs right back to the USA.
All right, so that was Kevin McCarthy talking about today's passage of the tax bill, the $1.5 trillion, the $1.5 trillion tax bill that will indeed put money back in our pockets and indeed do something to kickstart our nation's economy and do something about putting big holes in the amount of money that Democrats can spend. Not that they've ever had a problem spending money, even that they didn't have. You know, like, I don't know. I have no idea what Nancy Pelosi is talking about when she starts talking about how this is something that undermines the framers' intentions for this country. Excuse me, those were the guys throwing tea into Boston Harbor. All right, so when you start talking about this kind of stuff, you need to bone up on that good old American history here. The American people are not clamoring to pay this government more tax money. They're just not. And that is the story not just the Democrats want you to know and not just want you to believe. It's the story that indeed the mainstream media wants you to believe. And every time they bring stuff up like this, here's what happens. They begin to lose ground. They are damaging themselves almost beyond repair because the people of the United States truly do understand that these people are lying to us. They're just lying. Just lying. By the way, while we have this opportunity, we're going to be bringing something up here in a minute. We're going to be talking about something the President Obama did that may indeed answer a great many questions as to why we are dealing with some of the things we deal with from a deep state point of view. That's going to be coming up in just a couple of minutes. But first, let me give you just a few more little pieces of interesting news coming from this tax bill. Liberal comedian and television personality Rosie O'Donnell went on a Twitter rampage yesterday, shortly before the Senate passed a $1.5 trillion tax reform bill. What she did on her Twitter feed was call it a crime in progress. A crime in progress? What crime? Is giving back money to the American people a crime? The crime in progress apparently is taking money away from the federal government. Once again, these people are not thinking. When you start talking about money, when you start talking about the economy, when you start talking about the proved and proven waves that go through economies and economics in general, when you start going back through all of that proved ground, the Democrats were not in class that day. A rising tide does lift all boats. Nobody in the United States is clamoring to pay more money to the federal government. Nobody. To say that this is theft, that a crime is in progress because the Republicans are giving people back their money. And I don't care what income bracket you're in. The government giving back money is a good thing. Unless, of course, you're an anti-American thug. She's an outspoken critic of President Donald Trump. I'm talking about Rosie O'Donnell. She began her diatribe during Rachel Maddow's evening show, asking the MSNBC host whether American citizens should show up on Capitol Hill to protest the passage of the Republican-backed tax bill. Maddow, for real, should we just be getting in our cars on the train right now, show up in D.C. right now, we mobilize? Someone has got to call it hashtag Sago. Come on, hashtag now or never. Show up like a musical, masses of humans. Show up now. So obviously, Rosie O'Donnell's in Washington today, right? Oh no, she's not in Washington today. O'Donnell also insulted Senator Susan Collins and Jeff Flake. She offered them $2 million apiece to vote against the tax bill. $2 million apiece. Now, I realize I live in Texas and things are a little bit simpler around here, but you know what? That sounds a lot like bribery of a state official. I'm just saying. You're listening to the Wells Reports. Back in a moment. Ouch. Hey, Mike, do we find anything about this bill signing yet?
No, I just see that I seen something that said he might sign it in Mar-a-Lago. That was reported an hour ago, but that's all I see so far.
At a formal ceremony later.
Yeah.
Why don't we ask the news department to find out when that is?
Okay.
Okay. Let's find out when that signing is going to be.
Okay. All right. Hang on.
And Ferris, go ahead and finish up with Ferris.
All right, man. So our news guy just walked out the door.
Yes.
But I'll send him a text so he'll let me know when he gets home.
Please do.
All right.
Please do. We got to know.
All right.
Okay.
Gotcha. Here we go.
You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. Let's get to Ferris, who's streaming the USA Radio Network. Thanks for joining us, Ferris. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, just wanted to caution all of us against this
Hello, Ferris.
on the back and think we accomplished anything.
Well, let's say that one more time.
Can
I'm
you
sorry.
hear me now?
You blanked out right in the middle. Start over.
Well, I'm just concerned that there's too much celebrating going on here at a time when our guy, Trump, is up against the most powerful forces in the world, and all the intelligence agencies and the military and everybody else within the deep state, because he swore he would go there and clean up all the waste, fraud, and corruption in this cesspool called Washington, D.C. So let's not get too celebratory about this. Let's focus on the work that we have yet to do, and the fact that he's facing, according to the Fox News contributor, he's facing an assassination plot by the FBI. And all Trump is somebody who gave us an opportunity to work our collective asses off to try to save this country. He ain't going to make America great again. You and I are going to do it if it's going to be done, and it ain't going to be easy. So I'm not one that's jumping on the celebration train today. I've got my nose to the grindstone, and I'm looking for every opportunity to see what can be done, especially about the election rigging that cost Roy Moore this Senate seat in Alabama. See, this is our Senate seat. This has nothing to do with Alabama. This is your United States Senate, and you sat by while they sent this communist baby killer, what was his name, Doug Jones, in place of Roy Moore. I mean, can you really think that a liberal Democrat can win legitimately in Alabama? And do you think that this woman that won by one vote in Virginia yesterday is going to do anything but what all the rest of the women are doing? And that is trying to kill this male-led society, what's left of it. We can't repeal the 19th Amendment, or can we?
Well, Ferris, listen, you've unpacked a lot of things there. All I can say is that first of all, this isn't a celebration. This country is $20-something trillion in debt, and all I can say is that the last time this happened, which, by the way, was not Ronald Reagan, it was actually Bill Clinton. Last time this happened, the nation thrived, and that was on top of good government policy from the Reagan administration that got it all started. Reagan deregulation and tax cuts ignited the United States economy to the point where we were able to essentially work off the debt that was in place then. And what may just be absolutely amazing to you, it was to me, is that when you start thinking about giving money back to the people of the United States, just how many people stand up and say it's Armageddon? Just how many people stand up and say, that's the real tragedy here. The American left is lying to the people of the United States. The good news is the people of the United States know it. It's incredible. Before we go here, I have to stop and kind of shake my head at Sarah Silverman. She is another liberal comedian. She has a show on Hulu called I Love You, America, and I don't have any idea why she would name it that, unless it was some sort of sarcasm. She says, by the way, that patriotism has been perverted by conservatives. Sure it has. Sure it has. What she says is patriotism is perverted. We're not on the same page of what it means. To me, it's being patriotic is loving your country, being a citizen, having a voice, being e pluribus unum, of many one. How perverted is it to go from we are one to we are number one, which is such a childish idea? I don't think that being number one is a childish idea. I think that being number one is something that's within the capability of the United States of America and should be pursued with all due and reasonable course, with all due and reasonable effort. Patriotism is pursued or is perverted because the wrong people are pursuing it. I wonder if she runs out of personal energy, you know, when the polarities change in the government, insofar as things just are weird inside her head. And that is true. This is the Wells Report.
All right, man. Kind of good.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm reading here that it said one of Trump's aides said that he may sign the tax code or the tax code overhaul while he's vacationing in Mar-a-Lago, a state for the holiday.
Yes.
So it's a possibility that he could do it in the week between Christmas and New Year's, but we don't know. We'll just keep our eye out for it.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it's going to happen today, we got to jump all over it.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right.
Oh, I think he already did in the one event today, right?
Yeah, but that was just a celebration. He didn't actually sign the bill.
Yeah, that's the one they're referencing here. Is that the event was to celebrate the bill's passage, though it's not a signing ceremony. All right, cool. I'm going to run to the restroom real quick. You got like 2.5 minutes. I'll be right back. All right, back in 1 minute.
1 minute.
All right, back in 10 seconds.
10 seconds. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. There's a guy out there named Josh Meyer. Josh Meyer works for Politico. Josh Meyer has been working on a story for a long, long time. He published it today. We spoke briefly about it with Alan B. West, the former Florida congressman and author of Guardian of the Republic, friend of the Wells Report. And he said that this is the most amazing bit of journalism spiking he'd ever seen. The mainstream media are not following this particular story, which leaves us in the peculiar position of having a story that has not been confirmed through dual sourcing, which is basically the gold standard of how you figure out what to tell you from a standpoint of confirmed reporting. So what we have here is we have a story by a guy named Josh Meyer, who works for Politico, which is a very serious political reporting service. Impeccable credentials. You don't necessarily agree with them every moment, but that's okay. They report the story. But I want to make sure that you understand that these grains of salt that we've been talking about for the last couple of days, that you have to keep those handy in situations like this. You need to keep a couple of these handy. Although this looks very, very serious and certainly looks very, very shocking to me and most of the people that I've dealt with. Let me give you the news. The Obama administration stymied a sprawling investigation into the terror group Hezbollah and its likely and highly lucrative drug trafficking networks to protect the Iran nuclear deal. This is according to the very story I'm talking about from Josh Meyer of Politico. A team at the Drug Enforcement Administration had been working for almost a decade to bring down the Iran-backed militant organization's sophisticated $1 billion a year drug ring, which launders money and smuggled cocaine into the United States, according to Politico. The Department of Justice and Treasury repeatedly undermined agents' efforts to arrest and prosecute key members of the criminal network because the Obama White House feared upsetting Tehran ahead of the nuclear agreement, according to Politico. Former Treasury official Catherine Bauer even admitted in little notice testimony in the House Committee on Foreign Affairs last February that under the Obama administration, these Hezbollah-related investigations were tamped down for fear of rocking the boat with Iran and jeopardizing the nuclear deal. When the Iran agreement took effect in January of 2016, the investigation dubbed Project Cassandra was effectively dismantled. This was a policy decision. It was a systematic decision, said David Asher, an expert in illicit finance who helped found the project. They serially ripped apart this entire effort that was very well supported and resourced, and it was done from the top down. The task force worked for 8 years out of a top secret facility in Virginia with the help of 30 American and foreign security agencies to unravel the global crime syndicate that was funding Hezbollah's jihadist operations. Politico also reported the late Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez was in cahoots with then Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Hezbollah in cocaine trafficking and other activities meant to undermine U.S. influence. In 2007, Venezuelan state-run Conviasa airline was ferrying drugs and cash from Caracas to Tehran via Syria each week. Unbelievable. DEA agents nicknamed the airline Aero Terror because the airplanes would come back carrying weapons along with Hezbollah and Iranian operatives. But the Obama administration never fought to have two major players in the scheme extradited to the U.S. to face charges when it had the opportunity. Task force members charged. Others the team sought to bring to justice were Abdullah Seyfuddin, Hezbollah's envoy to Tehran, a shadowy operative nicknamed Ghost, whom they considered to be one of the biggest cocaine smugglers in the world. Quote, Hezbollah operates like the Gambino crime family on steroids. And Seyfuddin is John Gotti, said ex-DIA agent Jack Kelly, who created the task force. Whatever Iran needs, Seyfuddin is in charge of getting it for them. Seyfuddin, ultimately linked to a massive drug smuggling and money laundering network, allegedly led by Lebanese businessman Ayman Journa. Agents discovered Journa had smuggled tons of cocaine into the United States, then laundered $200 million a month by buying used cars from American dealers. The cars were sent to Benin in West Africa, where satellite photos taken in 2015 showed rows upon rows of cars in a lot. But the Obama administration repeatedly thwarted such efforts to prosecute Seyfuddin, according to Politico. An Obama spokesman denied the operation was derailed for political reasons, noting several Hezbollah members had been arrested. An Obama spokesman denied the operation was derailed for political reasons, noting several Hezbollah members were arrested. Other administration officials suggested those involved were blind to the bigger picture. The world is a lot more complicated when you view it through the narrow lines of drug trafficking, one official said. So you're not going to let CIA rule the roost, but you're certainly not going to let DEA do it either. The reporter, for his part, Josh Meyer, is standing by his bombshell report that the Obama administration shut down a law enforcement campaign targeting drug trafficking by the Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah for fear of jeopardizing the Iran nuclear deal. Federal investigators were watching and gathering evidence of Hezbollah sort of transforming itself from a political power and a terrorist organization to one that was trafficking in drugs and other criminal conspiracies to make hundreds of millions of dollars, said Meyer. Brett Baer from Fox News said, it's hard to overstate the significance of this developing story. No kidding. Meyer explained a couple of dozen super facilitators were identified, but when investigators tried to delve deeply into these people, they got shut down. He said Obama administration officials threw a series of roadblocks in front of the campaign, known as Project Cassandra, which halted efforts to curtail top Hezbollah operatives' criminal activity. Shannon Bream pointed out that the former National Security Council spokesperson, Tommy Vietor, said Meyer's sources were, quote, very flawed, unquote. And former State Department spokesperson Marie Harf claimed the narrative in Meyer's report was, quote, just false. Tommy Vietor, there are many reasonable critiques of Obama's foreign policy. The idea that he was soft on Hezbollah is not one of them. The story is so manufactured out of thin air, it's hard to push back except to say that it's a figment of the imagination of two very flawed sources. I just can't believe this. Harf said there's no evidence in this story to back up their allegations. They quote a couple of low-level ideological sources who clearly did not like the Iran deal. Meyer said he's a fan of Harf, but he said her claim that the people he spoke to were low level is sort of ridiculous. These were the people that had led this task force. They were not ideologues. They are not flawed. I don't know what she's talking about. He added that he spoke to many, many dozens of people and read thousands of documents to see if the allegations held up in the light of day. So this is not a story in 14,000 words where I was just taking some spin from some people. I spent months of meticulous reporting to document what was happening, talking to people outside the administration. So I challenge people to come up and let me know what the specifics are that they think aren't true. The last article here that I want to share with you goes like this. What if a president used his power to interfere with a federal investigation involving foreign powers committing serious crimes in the United States as well as elsewhere? Such a thing would be considered a terrible scandal and, no doubt, lead to a federal probe by special counsels who would be expected to get to the bottom of such a mess. But if you think this is a reference to the investigation led by Robert Mueller into possible collusion with Russia during the 2016 presidential campaign and protection and obstruction of justice once President Trump took office, you'd be wrong. While proof that the Trump campaign actually plotted with Russia has yet to be presented, evidence of another scandal involving President Obama and Hezbollah, Iran, and the Russians was just uncovered in an investigative story by Politico. The tale involves an administration decision to spike Project Cassandra, a federal probe into the international drug smuggling, money laundering, and terrorism perpetrated on the world by Hezbollah. The motive for interference in the justice system was to appease both Moscow and Tehran during Obama's quest for a nuclear deal with Iran. It happened because, as political sources made it clear, a decision was made at the highest levels of the Obama administration to prioritize making nice with Iran and Russia over the federal government's obligation to protect U.S. citizens. That sounds like spin to me. The point of all of this particular article by Jonathan Tobin, the whole thing seems to be a willingness to describe what real presidential obstruction looks like. It's the sort of thing that could rock Washington, an actual plot that placed the interests of foreign powers over those of the United States by President Obama. Project Cassandra was built upon previous efforts by the DEA and the U.S. intelligence agencies to deal with the growing reach of Hezbollah around the globe. By the time President Obama took office, Hezbollah's crimes financed terrorism to the tune of more than $1 billion a year, while furthering the interests of the Ayatollahs as they pulled their strings in Tehran. The Obama administration was not interested in progress in Project Cassandra. By the time the Obama second term began, he had in place CIA Director John Brennan, who had long advocated better relations with Hezbollah moderates. No such thing. Secretary of State John Kerry felt this way too, was determined to make every conceivable concession to Iran, including legalizing their nuclear program and allowing restrictions on it to eventually lapse in order to get an agreement. And that was the beginning of the end for Project Cassandra. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Orders from on high precluded indictments and operations designed to hinder Hezbollah. What is that all about? Stay right there. This reporting from Josh Meyer, Politico, and elsewhere continues on the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
All right, sir. Moving along here, about to end hour 2 after the next segment. All right, back in 30 seconds. Here we go. Here we go.
Rumbles and mumbles all underneath. You hear my voice.
For those who believe in the hope of this country, even greater, looking at this bill, Broadcom said they're coming back
I'm
to
here.
America.
All right, go.
You are listening to the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. That is Kevin McCarthy. He is the House Majority Whip, and they're talking about the tax bill. We're also talking about what's going on with President Obama and getting in the way of a DEA investigation. This, according to Politico's Josh Meyer. He is standing behind a report. The Obama administration shut down a law enforcement campaign targeting drug trafficking by the Iranian-backed terrorist group Hezbollah for fear of jeopardizing the Iranian nuclear deal. Let me give you some more information on this. Orders from on high, this according to Josh Meyer, orders from on high precluded indictments and operations designed to hinder Hezbollah. Ali Fayyad, a Lebanese arms dealer who was indicted on charges of planning the murders of U.S. government workers, had been captured in the Czech Republic. But bowing to Russian pressure, the U.S. made no effort to extradite him. Fayyad was allowed to evade justice and go back into business in Lebanon. Another top Hezbollah operative involved in chemical weapons also got a pass. An operative involved in chemical weapons. Possible indictments of Hezbollah personnel were quashed. A top operative involved in trafficking chemical weapons also got a pass, and requests to lure others involved into his mafia-style group to countries where they could be apprehended were denied. Those U.S. agents who protested this were told not to rock the boat. While the CIA was leery of DEA efforts to prosecute a group they sought to influence, the Obama administration was interested in neither law enforcement nor covert operations against Hezbollah as their push for an agreement with Tehran became more serious. Meanwhile, terrorists were sending plane loads worth of cash from Latin American drug trafficking and even the proceeds from Islamist-run used car companies in the U.S. back to Lebanon. Cash reserves in a Beirut account were awash with Hezbollah drug money. A regular shuttle flew from Venezuela to Iran with illegal drugs and cash flowing one way. Hezbollah and Iranian agents who were then supplied with fake identities by Venezuela the other. But to the frustration of those involved in Operation Cassandra, the United States did not act when it could to capture those in the scheme. The message the task force received was that their work could not interfere with a diplomatic charm offensive directed at Iran and Russia. By the time Trump took office, U.S. efforts to stop Hezbollah had been derailed. Worse than that, as it became clear that Obama had zero leverage in the negotiations, there was little he would not do to keep the Ayatollahs happy, including letting Hezbollah get away with it again. What does this mean? Where does it take us? I'll tell you what I think next. This is the Wells Report.
All right, man.
Sorry about that.
No sweat. I better set it up to where I can.
Well, that was pretty smart. What did you do? Well, that was the last McCarthy cut, right?
Yeah, I just started playing that when the music went off because
it's my fault. I was so stupid. I was talking about something that was happening that I should have been talking about at the end of the show, and I won't do that again. My fault.
no sweat. I'll just put I didn't have your music. Usually I would play the music over again, but I didn't have the hotkey set up. So I'm gonna just make sure that's on there next time.
All right, man. Thanks.
But no sweat. I'll be back in just a minute, man.
All right. Sorry about that. My fault.
No big deal, man. You got 6 minutes.
6.
they believe those monsters?
Wells Fargo, Fifth Third Bancorp unveiled minimum wage hikes after tax bill packet. What?
So after the tax bill passes,
Right.
Wells Fargo and then also Fifth Third Bank said, "Hey, we're going to start giving our employees $15 an hour, and we're going to do some other stuff." Can you believe those monster corporations?
How dare they?
Not keeping their own money.
This proves that Democrats were right again.
Yeah.
That as soon as all of these corporations had an opportunity to pay their people more money, wait. This proves what Democrats have always said, that when the rich get more money, I'm confused.
AT&T gave 200,000 employees a $1,000 bonus this year. Wow. Can you believe these monsters?
Disgusting monsters.
I think, what was the other thing that they did? Oh, Wells Fargo also targeting $400 million in donations to community improvement around the country.
I gotta put this out there, man. Wow.
This girl has been out here taking selfies for seriously 5 minutes.
Excuse me? Is she naked? Just kidding. Just kidding.
All right, man. Back in a minute 20.
I'm here.
All right. Yeah, we're back in 1 minute, man. I got your UFO clip ready too.
Okay, I got it. That's awesome. Wow.
What?
You know, that little enclosure, it might be a little place where we should keep our eyes on that. We might be able to protect them from attackers.
Right, yeah. Maybe set up,
An observation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut out,
Combat Overwatch.
exactly. Cut out a little hole in
All
right, here we go. Back in 10 seconds.
10 dang seconds. North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. You know, the Democrats were talking about apocalypse and Armageddon and all of these terrible things after the tax bill would be forced on America. Americans clamoring for more and more tax hikes, not tax cuts. More and more tax hikes. This just in. Fifth Third Bancorp has just announced it will pay 13,500 employees a bonus and raise the minimum wage of its workforce to $15 an hour after the passage of the Republican tax plan that will cut the bank's corporate tax rate. Fifth Third is yet another company to announce a bonus for employees because of the tax plan. AT&T said earlier today it would pay more than 200,000 U.S. employees $1,000 each and increase its capital spending budget by $1 billion. Wells Fargo has announced it will be boosting its minimum wage for employees to $15 an hour, which was prompted by the tax plan. The San Francisco-based bank said it would target $400 million in donations to community and nonprofit organizations next year. Cincinnati-based Fifth Third, the 15th largest U.S. bank by asset size, said the tax cut allowed it to reevaluate its employee pay and pass along some of the windfall. Nearly 3,000 workers will see hourly wages rise to $15. The $1,000 one-time bonus is expected. The $1,000 one-time bonus is expected to be paid by the end of this year, according to the bank, assuming President Donald Trump signs the bill into law by Christmas. My fellow Americans, let this stand as a monument to the fact that what President Kennedy said was true. A rising tide does lift all boats. American corporations do pass along their profits and windfalls to their employees. Supply side economics does work. Trickle down economics does work. All of those fancy terms, by the way, terms from the 80s, have a different name. Capitalism. Free market capitalism. I want to make sure that you understand this. This is just the beginning. Let's get back to this Obama story. The mainstream media is not reporting it. Why they are not reporting it, I don't know. I think this one is too big to ignore. Josh Meyer, Politico, says that the Obama administration shut down a law enforcement campaign targeting drug trafficking by the Iranian-backed terrorist group Hezbollah for fear of jeopardizing the Iran nuclear deal. Remember, Iran and Hezbollah work together. Hezbollah was under investigation by the DEA. These people were indeed in a position where the federal investigators were watching and gathering evidence of Hezbollah transforming itself from a political power and a terrorist organization to a drug cartel trafficking in drugs and other criminal conspiracies to make hundreds of millions of dollars to fund yet more terrorist work around the world. The President Obama, in an effort to keep the conversation going between the United States and Iran over an ill-fated nuclear deal, shut down the operation called Cassandra to take a big piece, maybe even an existential piece, out of Hezbollah. So what does this mean? What does it mean that President Obama protected an international terrorist organization, turning itself into an international drug distribution ring? What does it mean that the President of the United States protected these criminal enterprises and others in the funding of worldwide terror? What does it mean? Eight 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. What does this mean? Does this mean all of the things thrown at the Trump administration through the deep state, through this phantom collusion with the Russians? In this particular story, The president of the United States at the time, yes, President Barack Obama, was colluding with the Russians in order to not take shots and pieces out of Hezbollah, because the Russians are also working with the Iranians. That's in this story. The story that the mainstream media won't cover. They have one of two choices. They can either cover this story, or they can prove this story is not true. But either way, they are going to have to figure out some way of dealing with this story, because if it's true, the president of the United States is complicit in worldwide terror, worldwide drug trafficking, all for the sake of politics having to do with a nuclear deal with a demonstrated state sponsor of terror, Iran. Somewhere in all of this drug trafficking, somewhere in all of this weapons trafficking, somewhere in all of this is a little town called Benghazi. And somewhere in the middle of all of this is a dead ambassador named Chris Stevens. And somewhere in all of this is a plan to keep the Trump administration so busy with sabotage, so busy with ducking for cover under constant attack by first the mainstream media and then, of course, the deep state, left in place by President Obama to do exactly what's been going on. All the while, there is collusion between President Obama and the Russians, and President Obama and a known terror organization, and President Obama and a state sponsor of terror. So while you people are trying to discover ways of impeaching President Trump for being elected by the people of the United States, while the FBI is working on some sort of insurance plan to make sure that President Trump doesn't take office, while that same organization is working to overlook what Hillary Clinton did, her violations of the Espionage Act, to be able to keep her in the game so that Donald Trump didn't win the presidency. We now learn that the president of the United States before Donald Trump was facilitating terror funding, drug trafficking around the world, all for the sake of an ill-fated nuclear deal with Iran. Somebody tell me I got this wrong. Somebody tell me that my conclusions are full of crap. Come on, you don't worry about it on other things. Tell me that my analysis, my clear view of this is skewed somehow by my politics. Now, I will say this. I don't know this is true. This is not confirmed. We do not have what is policy of the of the Wells report, twin sources of news, to be able to move forward with a report as confirmed. So, all of this that you've heard me say is based on unconfirmed news. If this news story is true, then the analysis you just heard is spot on. Now, I have noticed something. I know that there are people listening to this broadcast. I have noticed that you spend more time listening than interacting. This is not the time to listen and sit back and contemplate whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Now's the time to get on the telephone and talk to me. 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. Get on the telephone and spend some time talking to me about this story. This is about a United States president doing what I have been talking about, the left being immersed in for years, which is to look through the facts, look through the law, look through reality, look through all the things that are real and a part of what we deal with in the United States as a nation of laws, as a nation of logic, as a nation of truth. Look through all of that to see politics and the political imperative and dispense with all that you see in order to get to that political imperative. That is the fault and flaw of the left. It is the pathological as an existential flaw of leftist politics in these United States. It is why they cannot be given power. It is why when they have power, they must be watched incessantly. This legerdemain about casting aspersions on the Trump administration to cover up what might be egregious sins of the Obama administration. If you got to make a deal with a burgeoning nuclear power that's a state sponsor of worldwide terrorism, and if to do that you have to break American law and tell American law enforcement officials to stop enforcing the law, you're not doing the right thing. This is the Wells Report.
All right, sir. Sounded good there. You all right, man?
It's monstrous. This is hard for me. There isn't an American worth a damn that wants to think that its government would malfunction at this level. We would do anything. We will suspend disbelief. We will pray. We will look beyond. We'll do exactly what I just said. We'll look through the facts and we'll look through the reality, and we'll try to find the bromide that makes us feel better to think that our nation's government is not malfunctioning. But you can't do it this time, and it's very, very hard to deal with this.
Yeah, and just imagine the stuff we don't even hear about.
Well, I mean, this was what I was dealing with. This was what I was dealing with in 2016. I mean, to me, I didn't see the fabric of the nation being able to withstand the forces that were trying to tear it apart. And I couldn't. All I could do was tell people that it was happening. I was powerless to do anything about it. I could not stop it. I could not do anything except report it. And it's like I am on one radio station in Dallas, and I'm not even on during full power. I'm on with 680 watts, talking to a very small but dedicated, patriotic audience that gets it.
Yeah.
And it was like, are you kidding me? You go back through it and you ask those questions and you go, he didn't really do this, did he? Yeah. Yeah, he really did that.
Yeah, that's some
Wow.
So many people nowadays like just are blind to all this, like don't even pay attention to it. This kind of type of stuff, you know.
David, thanks, man. I know you got a brain. I know everybody in this chat room has a brain. The thing about it is that, yeah, truth is truth, and it will out. But it's like, can you believe that they would stop law enforcement from doing their job in order to play politics? In order to say the president had a giant foreign policy victory?
All right, here we're coming back in 10 seconds.
All right. You are listening to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. 844-927-6691. Don't just sit there. You cannot hear this story. You cannot hear this story. You cannot think of its implications without having something to say. 844-927-6691. So, on the heels of this amazing story told by Josh Meyer, and keep in mind that there are a couple of other journalists that I'm concerned about. More about that coming up in just a little bit. I want you to listen to this. They had a cabinet meeting today. And before they got going, Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson led a prayer. Our kind Father in heaven, we are so thankful for the opportunities and the freedom that you grant us in this country. We thank you for the president and for our cabinet members who are courageous, who are willing to face the winds of controversy in order to provide a better future for those who come behind us. We're thankful for the unity in Congress that has presented an opportunity for our economy to expand so that we can fight the corrosive debt that has been destroying our future. We hope the unity will spread even beyond party lines so that people recognize that we have a nation in this worth saving, and recognize that nations divided against themselves cannot stand. In this time of discord, distrust, and dishonesty, we ask that you would give us a spirit of gratitude, compassion, and common sense, and give us the wisdom to be able to guide this great nation in the future. We ask this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Before Secretary Carson gave that prayer, President Trump told the reporters that they could stick around for it. Here's how he did that. You can stay if you want, because you need it more than we do. The Wells Report was born of a need to tell the truth, to provide the people who would listen unwarped, unsanitized, real truth to the best of my ability every single day that I had God's gift to be behind a microphone somewhere. That happened, started not the day after 9/11, but on 9/11. It came to me as an epiphanal moment. Because I realized that we were being fed lies and disinformation and outright dishonesty, and that people were basing their decision making on that dishonesty. That the news had become the reasons that Republicans are bad. Don't get me wrong, I had plenty of reasons that I thought the Republicans were bad too. But not from the left side of the Republican Party, from the right side of the Republican Party. The side of the party that believes that the Constitution does mean something. That the Bill of Rights do mean something. That the court system does have to provide equal justice for all. Not equal justice for us, and more equal justice for the power elite. This truth is hard. It's a hard gig. But you've got to hear it. You got to hear it. Because there's news out there that you simply have to act on. And you just got about a half an hour's worth of it right now. You're listening to the Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network. Back with more in just a moment.
All right, man. The guy called in while you were talking, named Mark, and said he just wanted to say that you were on the right track because he mentioned some contractor that called into a radio show yesterday, but I didn't. He said he had to go. He didn't have time to stay on and talk to you. But hang on, here's another call. Hey, JD.
Yeah.
This Mark guy wanted to call back and say he wants to see if he could talk to you during the break because he wants to tell you something or something. It's up to you. It's your call.
Yeah. I can't do it. I can't do it. I gotta keep thinking.
I'll just take a
Tell
minute
him.
for
You give him the Wells Report at USA Radio. What is it usradionetwork.com? What is it?
USA Radio Network.
Or usradionetwork.com?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, give him that one, and I'll see it and so on. Huh?
Give him your email.
Yeah, give him my email.
Okay. All right, got you, man. Hang on. We're back in 2 minutes. All right.
Yeah.
He said it was Mark from Denton, and he used to call you a lot, but he said he still listens, but he can't call a lot anymore because
No problem. He's at work. Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I'm running up against here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Signing. All right, back in 10 seconds.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. As it turns out, the former government investigation into UFOs did not stop with Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book is famous to UFO devotees as the investigation into the Roswell incident, where people said that an unidentified flying object crashed outside of Roswell, New Mexico. Bodies were discovered and taken to various government installations, along with wreckage, etc. As it turns out, there has been a secret Pentagon UFO program in place. The piece was written in the New York Times on the front page Sunday this last weekend. It revealed a secret Pentagon program to investigate UFOs. The piece by Pentagon correspondent Helene Cooper, the author Leslie Kean, and Ralph Blumenthal, a contributor to the Times after a 45-year staff career, dominated most of the emails and most of the people who commented since. How does this story on UFOs get into the New York Times? Not easily, and one after a great deal of vetting, I assure you. The journey began 2.5 months ago with a trip to Leslie, who has a long reported UFOs and published in 2010 New York Times bestseller, UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record, at a confidential meeting October 4th in a Pentagon City hotel with several present and former intelligence officials and defense contractors. Leslie Kean met with Luis Elizondo, director of a Pentagon program she had never heard of, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. She learned it was a secret effort funded at the initiative of the then Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid, starting in 2007, to investigate aerial threats, including what the military preferred to call unidentified aerial phenomena, or just objects. This was big news. The United States military had announced as far back as 1969 that UFOs were not worth studying. Leslie also learned that Mr. Elizondo had just resigned to protest what he characterized as excessive secrecy and internal opposition. She spent hours with him reviewing unclassified documents for the $22 million program operated largely in the white. That is, not under special restricted access, but hidden in the huge defense budget, with only parts of it classified. A few days later, Mr. Elizondo and others there, including Harold E. Putoff, an engineer who had conducted research on extrasensory perception for the CIA and later worked as a contractor on the program, and Christopher K. Mellon, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, announced they were joining a new commercial venture, To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, to raise money for research into UFOs. Ms. Keene wrote it up for the Huffington Post with scant details of the program. Mr. Blumenthal says he knew Leslie for years. She told me this looks like a story for the Times. I agreed. They met with Elizondo in Philadelphia on October 31st. 3 days later, I emailed the executive editor, Dean Baquet, about a sensational and highly confidential, time-sensitive story that involves a senior U.S. intelligence official who abruptly quit last month, exposing a deeply secret program, long mythologized, but now confirmed. He alerted Mark Mazzetti, the investigations editor in the Washington Bureau. Mr. Mazzetti was briefed November 7th by the reporters of this story. They assured him that there were no anonymous sources. Everyone was on the record. After discussions in Washington and New York, Helene joined the team. That would be, let me double check this. Helene Cooper joined the team. The Washington Bureau chief, Elizabeth Boomiller, would be the editor. November 17th, they met with Mr. Elizondo at a nondescript Washington hotel where he sat with his back to the wall, keeping an eye on the door. Carl Halsey, the Times chief Washington correspondent, was well acquainted with Mr. Reed and helped arrange an interview for Helene. She flew to Las Vegas, met with a former senator, Senator Reed, who confirmed the program with details saying, "I'm not embarrassed or ashamed or sorry I got this going." Yes, put off. P-U-T-H-O-F-F. Put off. Leslie interviewed the aerospace magnate Robert Bigelow, who also confirmed his participation, saying Americans were being held back from serious research into UFOs by a, quote, juvenile taboo, unquote. Blumenthal interviewed a prominent skeptic for perspective. It's important we not take anything on faith. This field attracts zealots as well as debunkers. Many Americans remain deeply skeptical that the phenomenon exists as popularly portrayed. In draft after draft, we took pains to let the investigation speak for itself without bias. Helene met with Pentagon spokesman on December 8th for a response to the information that had been gathered. The answer came swiftly. There had been a program to investigate UFOs. It ended in 2012 after 5 years. The reporting suggested it continues, mostly unfunded, to the present. I don't think it should stop. I think it should be funded and move forward. How about you? It was 1996. I was working in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was broad daylight, sunny day in the spring. I and approximately 5 or 6 of my coworkers were out on the side patio of the building that housed Sunny 106.5, a country station, Big Oldies 93.1, where I was employed. And our production director, Dave Murphy, called me out onto the patio and said, JD, what do you see up there? And I saw 3 small white objects in a perfect triangle, way up in the air. While we watched them, the perspective on the triangle, if I can describe this to you, let's assume that the uppermost vehicle, and it was a vehicle, the uppermost vehicle was at, say, 1030, with an equidistant other 2 objects at about 5:30 and at about 2:30. While we watched them, they switched perspectives. In other words, changed approximately 45 degrees. I went into the radio station. I called the North Las Vegas airport and I asked if they could look at their radars at about 10,000 feet, gave them our address and said, can you see anything up there? And they said no. I basically looked at it and I said, I'd seen these articles of these white spots flying in formation. You've seen them too, over Mexico City, over San Diego, various places, right? You look at those and you go, yeah, I've seen those. Well, apparently, David Fravor or Fravor has seen them too. Who is he? Well, he's one of the guys on this piece of audio.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not. It is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like another thing, it's rotating.
It's a white object, oblong, pointing north, moving erratically. At the time of the sighting, Fravor was a naval commander in the cockpit of a U.S. aircraft. I think it was an F-14. Details of the encounter are still fresh in his mind. As I got close to it, it rapidly accelerated to the south. It disappeared in less than 2 seconds. The object in question had no wings. As such, people thought it might have been a helicopter. Not so, said Fravor, noted clear differences between the chopper and the aircraft that he came across. When helicopters move side to side, they slow and then they pick up speed going the other way. This is extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. It would simply change direction. The movement of the flying object was unlike anything Fravor had seen, largely due to its agility and the way it handled. Speaking live with Jim Sciutto on Tuesday evening on CNN, the former naval pilot said the aircraft had the ability to hover over the water, then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards 12,000 feet, then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear. It's easy to doubt what we can't explain, he said. However, he reminded viewers that he was among the other aviation experts, all of whom did their due diligence on that day. It was an actual object that we tracked for somewhere around 5 minutes before it rapidly accelerated. Fravor's account comes as the New York Times reported the Pentagon researched the possible existence of UFOs. According to the report in the paper on Saturday and Sunday, the once completely classified project had begun because of the intense interest in the subject by former Senator Harry Reid. The Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program was launched in 2007 after Reid spoke to his longtime friend Robert Bigelow, the billionaire founder of an aerospace company called, strangely enough, Bigelow Aerospace. A former Pentagon official who recently revealed the government program to research potential UFOs added Monday evening he believes there's evidence of alien life reaching Earth. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, said Luis Elizondo. This on CNN's Aaron Burnett out front. Elizondo told the New York Times he resigned from the Department of Defense in October to protest what he called excessive secrecy surrounding the program and the internal opposition for it after funding for the effort ended in 2012. Elizondo said that he could not speak on behalf of the government, but he strongly implied there was evidence that stopped him from ruling out the possibility that alien aircraft had indeed visited Earth. These aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics we are not currently within U.S. inventory or any other foreign inventory that we're aware of. He said the program sought to identify what had been seen, either through tools or eyewitness reports, then ascertain and determine if the information is a potential threat to national security. We found a lot. The former Pentagon official said they identified anomalous aircraft that seemingly defied the laws of aerodynamics. Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond the healthy G-forces a human being or anything biological. Well, if, say, for example, you had a vehicle that could indeed manipulate gravity, not only could you make those kinds of moves without having to worry about any kind of G loading inside the aircraft or spacecraft or whatever it is, because the entire gravitational field that it was manipulating would be moving at the same time, at the same rate, in the same space as the person in the vehicle. No harm, no foul. The fighter pilot said that this looked like a Tic Tac, a big one, but a Tic Tac, which got me back to the 3 white spots I saw in 1996 in the spring. Do I believe that we've been visited from other people by other people from other planets? Sure. Do I believe that as our technology continues to advance, do I believe that it becomes more and more likely that we might see people from other places? Yeah, it makes sense. They'd be reaching out to see how we handled our technology. Do they care whether they show themselves? Why? Why would they care? They have vehicles like that. They don't have to worry about an F-14. There's video. You can see it on CNN. What are your thoughts? Call me now on the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. I seen that video. Yeah, the thing does it does move around pretty weird.
Well, but what bothers me about it is that it is directly in the center of the screen and it never moves. It never deviates.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I have to look at it again. I didn't even.
Yeah, look at the video. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just saying.
Well, that's pretty good that you spotted that. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you look at it and you can see the background moving.
Yeah.
But if they're traveling in an F-16, right? Or an F-14, the craft is going to be moving.
Oh, you mean it was filmed from it?
Yeah, I mean that was gun sight video.
Oh, okay. It seems like it would be moving.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'm back.
All right. We got a minute 50.
A minute 50. Cool. Dag nabbit.
What's up?
Hey, do me a favor, Philip. Would you go and check in the offices, or would you go down to the David Anderson's office and get a business card from him? He's on the 5th floor. It's I don't know what suite it is. It's like 501. It's right there. You can't miss it. But David Anderson, CPA, and get one of his business cards, and would you then text all that information to Ms. Janet Burrow? Say what? Okay, thanks. Independence Day 3. Oh, yeah.
All right, back in 10 seconds.
Okay. Mark, have a nice evening. God bless you. Thank you for the kind words. You're listening to the Wells Report. I'm John David Wells. 844-927-6691, 844-927-6691. Speaking of flying objects and varmints, not saying that the people that I was just discussing would be varmints. They're not. I wouldn't think. There is, however, a varmint that has mostly identified flying objects. His name is Kim Jong-un. He has ICBMs. And from what we understand from Catherine Lamb of Fox News, North Korea is beginning tests on mounting anthrax onto intercontinental ballistic missiles that could indeed strike the United States. This is a report from today, 2 days after the White House U.S. national security strategy stated Kim Jong-un is pursuing chemical and biological weapons. North Korea is beginning experiments to test out if anthrax can endure immense heat and pressure it would have to endure when loaded into an ICBM and launched towards Earth's atmosphere. This according to Japan's Asahi newspaper, citing an unidentified person connected to South Korea's intelligence services. North Korea has started experiments such as heat and pressure equipment to prevent anthrax from dying even at a high temperature of over 7,000 degrees, generated at the time of an ICBM's entry into the atmosphere. In part, there's unconfirmed information it has already succeeded in such experiments. On Monday, the White House released a U.S. national security strategy that said that North Korea is pursuing chemical and biological weapons, which could also be delivered by a missile. North Korea, a country that starves its own people, has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons that could threaten our homeland. North Korea vehemently denies the report, accused the U.S. of cooking up untruths as truths and using biological weapons during the Korean War. That did not occur. Properly speaking, the U.S. stereotyped methods to cook up untruths as truths, stubbornly insisting that black is white, fabricating anything for satisfying their aggressive greed. This according to the state-run Korean Central News Agency. The U.S. itself is an empire of evils, full of plots, fabrications, lies, and deceptions. It added, it is none other than the U.S., chattering on morality and civilization, the criminal state that massacred the Korean people by bacteriological weapons during the Korean War and inflicted sufferings upon innocent people by continuing even now to openly use the internationally prohibited weapons. South Korea has long suspected North Korea was developing biological weapons. A report by Harvard's Kennedy School Belfast Center, School for Science and International Affairs, stated the dictatorship may have anthrax and smallpox pathogens that could be turned into weapons. North Korea is believed to have started its chemical and biological weapons program in the early 1960s, began possibly weaponizing biological agents in the 1980s. Kim Jong-un scientists launched its greatest ICBM in late November that the regime claimed could carry a super heavy nuclear warhead that could strike the whole mainland of the U.S. However, North Korea has set to perfect its reentry technology, they say. This according to a U.S. official telling Fox News that the Hwasong 15 ICBM did not survive reentry into the Earth's atmosphere. Probably reliable information. So there you go. Told you it was a big day today. It was. Still no word on exactly when President Trump is going to sign the new tax bill. We will keep our eyes open and we will let you know when that happens. Same story with any UFOs that happen to be flying around. We'll let you know about those. And we'll keep our eyes on Kim Jong-un, the crazy kid from North Korea. Executive producer of the Wells Report is the Philip Brown. Our studio coordinator is Mike Hawkins. I'm John David Wells. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow for another edition of the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
All right, man. Good show today.
Thank you.
And we'll keep our eye on the tax bill thing for tomorrow.
Yes, we will. Keep our eyes on it. Thanks very much.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Take good care.
All right, man. See you back tomorrow.
Bye, brother.
Later.
Take care.
All right.
That was a hard one. Ouch. All right. God bless all y'all. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for your kind words. Thanks very much for your thumbs up. God bless all y'all, and take good care. And let me give you one more of those, and we will see you tomorrow.